Welcome to the Wokest Born, where we have the Wokest Discourse. Tonight, I want to talk about the mainstream media, and I also want to talk about our collective sense of decency as Americans and how that's being eroded. I heard this story about this guy in Michigan who decided that he was going to do a terrorist attack on a synagogue. And I already knew a lot about the story. First thing I learned about the story was that he went there to kill people, but he didn't kill anybody because the synagogue has armed guards. So as soon as this guy came barreling in with his truck, they were like ready and they shot him dead, which was perfectly reasonable given the situation. It's just weird in America to hear about somebody getting shot and it not being like some horrible injustice, like it's still a tragedy, but at least it was like warranted. Because the guy had like some giant gun and he planned to do a mass shooting when it was gonna try to kill people at the synagogue. And the reason why was because this guy was kind of crazy with grief. I mean, some people would say he's not crazy, he's sane. But being sane is a certain type of crazy. But his family had just been bombed in Lebanon. And his whole family was killed. And he was like, I'm going to do this terrorist attack on this synagogue to get revenge for my family, kind of like an eye for an eye type deal, which is like, first of all, like never good. That's like never cool. As the old hippie saying goes, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Yeah, so this guy, it was reported in the news on some mainstream channel today. And I was just watching clips of the news, and it was like ABC News or some mainstream news channel. It was not CBS News, because I am in particularly boycotting CBS News because of their, like, how they have like the Trump White House embedded in their newsroom now. So I won't even listen to what they're saying at all. But it was like a mainstream news source that I wouldn't have any particular reason not to trust. And they completely left the whole part of a story out about the guy being in grief. They said that the reason why this guy did this terrorist attack was because he was radicalized by Hezbollah. And it's like a weird way to blame the victim. Like, in other words, there's this thing that's just a marker of like Israeli influence where they're like, we're going to make ourselves the victim of like every situation. but we have to like lie and be the most manipulative about it. So here we have a situation where like Jewish people are actually really the victims of the situation. Like they're completely innocent victims. And the propaganda machine has to lie about it. And you're like, why? And it to me, it's part of it is that they lie so much that they just continue to do it even when they don't need to. Do you have anybody in your life like that that's a liar? Yeah, my first husband was a big liar. He would lie about everything. He would lie about what he had for lunch. And it used to piss me off so bad. Like I would go like insane. And it's really funny because my daughter, Zelda, also lies about things that don't matter. Like just to entertain herself, you know? And it's like she'll just lie and you're like, why did you lie about that? And she's like, oh, I don't know, whatever. So I don't give her a hard time about it. But the media lies to us like that. And there's this whole other thing I want to talk about the erosion of decency. I was thinking about how it is a thing now that if you are Jewish and you have a religious community, that you have to hire armed guards that are trained to kill. Like, that's just the facts. That's just the reality. Like, they cannot worship in peace. And it's very upsetting to me because when you think about American history and you think about all the fucked up shit that white people did, right? Slavery, genocide, the list goes on and on. We could be here all night. One of the things that white people did well, one of the only things that white people did well, is they spread this concept of religious freedom. And that's one of the most quintessential American values. When we talk about the values that we have in this country, one of the things that Americans value is that your religion is your choice. And you have nothing to say to anybody else about what their religion is, because that is their right, because we live in a free society. We have had, and I'm talking about like, you can be like some Hale-Bopp comet death cult and you still have your freedom of religion. Like, those people were allowed to do whatever they wanted to do. And they wanted to kill themselves, so they did, and that was their own business. But, you know, if you look back at some of the historical religions that have cropped up in America, we're talking about the Shakers, who had like a whole religion that was like dancing and they didn't have sex. And then you have the Oneida community, not the Native American nation, but the white people that started their own like communalist church, and everybody had sex with everybody. They called it group marriage. I always thought they were really cool. You know the thing that I thought was the coolest about them, though? They had this deal, they were kind of Fourier-esque, where they rotated jobs. So, like, nobody would be full-time working in the machine shop or full-time working in the kitchen. You rotated. So that everybody took a turn in the kitchen and everybody took a turn in the machine shop. And they attribute that to the community having so many patents because people were doing different types of work and stimulating different parts of their brain. It made them prone to making new inventions to do labor, I guess. Anyway, you know, the Oneida community lived in their big house and had group sex, and they didn't have to hire armed guards. Nobody shot them. You know, when I think about a lot of the extremist American religions, they're nonviolent. Like the Amish. The Amish do not fight. They're complete pacifists in their religion. So, although I did hear a story about some Amish guys shooting up a barn in Pennsylvania, like scaring the shit out of the entire community because, anyway, whatever. If you're from PA, you know the story. Anyway, the Amish they very famously advertise the fact that they do not have a weapon. And if you attack them, they will not hit you back. They do not have armed guards outside of their religious services because they just have to put their trust in God. Get this, though. We have had this tradition going back to the American colonies. The lady who founded Rhode Island, right? She was like, had some religion where she thought she was an oracle and God talked to her or whatever. And they were like, no, you can't do that because, like, that's not our religion. And she was like, fuck all y'all. And went to Rhode Island and hung out with some Indians and decided to make her own religion. I can't remember her name. If it was like, I get all those women from the colonial period mixed up. If it was like Anne Hutchinson or Clara Barton. No, I'm pretty sure Clara Barton was a nurse. Anyway, we had the Shakers. We have the Quakers. Quaker meeting houses, very famously, do not have armed guards. They don't believe in it. They don't believe in fighting back. Like, if you show up at a Quaker meeting house and do some violence, you're not going to get a lot of resistance. So these are just a few of the examples of different denominations that I know of that, like, practice nonviolence, so they wouldn't have security. And yet none of them feel the need to have it because they are not under threat. The reason the synagogues have the security is because people keep killing people at synagogues. What does this say about America? I mean, yes, you know, we can remember that America is the country built on slavery and genocide. It's difficult to say which came first, the slavery or the genocide or the slavery. The two go hand in hand. But this is like just the one thing that America got right, that religion doesn't matter. It really doesn't. People can have whatever religion they want. Like, it, you're never going to be able to stop them anyway. So there's no point in it. And when we lose that as a nation, and those among us feel that they need armed guards outside their houses of worship, our sense of collective decency has been eroded. And that is alarming, because the fascists are doing this to us on purpose. They want to completely erode any sense of decency that we could possibly have left after Abu Ghraib. Back to the story about the story, the propaganda. I read Noam Chomsky's book, Manufacturing Consent, and I listened to a lot of his lectures. Sidebar, I guess Noam Chomsky was a plagiarist who took credit for other people's work, so I don't actually know whose work Manufacturing Consent all is. Just, it wasn't Noam Chomsky's, but it has his name on the book. That the only way that our society, like our government, our elites, are able to get away with atrocities is they slowly build up our tolerance. They ease us into it. And this story about Hezbollah was like, my jaw dropped. I couldn't believe it. It was like the most USSR style propaganda that I have ever heard from an American news outlet. It was not just a slanted, it was lies. In lies that were very easy to Google. Okay? Like, just lies. The last time we saw something this big was Colin Powell and the weapons of mass destruction. Like, where, you know, New York Times just caught out just publishing lies. That's why I don't read the New York Times. One of many, many, many reasons that I don't read the New York Times. Which is funny because my old friend, the late Stoughton Lynn, he used to read the New York Times every day. And I thought that was like bizarre, completely bizarre. I had a class at YSU where we were required to read the New York Times every day. It was a creative writing class, with nonfiction writing. But I can't understand, even now, I have friends that have subscriptions to the New York Times, and I'm just like, why do you even want to read that? You know, and they say, oh, it's the paper of record. I'm just like, lies. Sorry. I mean, why am I going to waste my time listening to someone who I've caught lying to me? Like, I could be spending my time doing anything else. I don't need to spend my time listening to lies. So, where the double speak, the double think. I'm sorry, it's been a long time since I read 1984. But you know, like, where it's a complete oxymoron. I just woke up in America and it's worse than it's ever been in my lifetime. And I was born in 1975. Like, Watergate. I want you to think about common decency and to think about how this attack on this synagogue is connected to the violence of war, and it is also connected to the lies in the media. We're being asked to consent to a war. I don't know if you noticed, but we're like 30 days into a new war with Iran. And they have to get us to consent to it. They might have us tricked into thinking that they don't need us to consent to it, but they do. Because they just sent 50,000 troops over there. And they are cutting healthcare to make up for the $25 billion that they've already spent on this war. I need everyone to think about our collective sense of common decency. And you know how they say, be the change that you want to see in the world? I want all of you to be decent to each other. You don't have to be excellent to each other. Can you try to just be decent and recognize the humanity in each and every person? They cannot continue to do this bullshit with ICE. They cannot continue to put people in concentration camps. They want to put more and more and more people into concentration camps. And sooner or later, the people are not going to put up with it anymore because it's disgusting. It goes against our collective sense of decency, and they fucking know it. So they're lying to us about it. They're lying to us about Iran the same way they're lying to us about the data centers, the way they are lying to us about the Epstein files, the way they lie to us about everything else. But I just, when I was growing up, my best friend was a Jehovah's Witness. And I was raised to be Roman Catholic. And my parents and his parents, I don't know if they got together and had a tete-a-tete and decided this collectively, but my parents really fought religious prejudice to honor and affirm my friendship with the boy who lived across the street, who was Jehovah's Witness. And I know his parents did the same because Jehovah's Witness very famously are about keeping to themselves. They're like the Amish. They're about, you stay in your community. So the boy who lived across the street had plenty of friends, other friends who were Jehovah's Witnesses that were over all the time. His parents could have easily said no, you're not allowed to play with that girl with glasses across the street. So they affirmed it as well, because I believe that our parents shared a sense of common decency. Our parents were like, we don't want our kids to grow up prejudiced. We want our kids to grow up tolerant. And so it was just a little thing, you know? It was just a little thing, but it was the decent thing to do. The next time someone asks you to do something indecent, I want you to ask why, what they're getting out of the deal. Because I guarantee you it benefits them in some way. Thanks for listening.